On Quran, Surah 33, Ayat 37, and its Tafsir, exegesis, and then in the light of other Quran ayats, what is proven against Prophet Muhammad and Allah's revelations will be shown in this video. Definition of Tafsir, exegesis by AI overview. Tafsir means interpretation, explanation, or exegesis, and in the Islamic context, it refers to the scholarly interpretation and explanation of the Quran to uncover God's will, clarify verses, and understand their historical context. Now Surah 33, Ayah 37, and remember, O Muhammad, when you said to the one on whom Allah bestowed favor and you bestowed favor, keep your wife and fear Allah, or be mindful of Allah, while you concealed within yourself that which Allah is to disclose, and you feared the people, while Allah has more right that you fear Him. So when Zaid had no longer any need for her, we married her to you in order that there not be upon the believers any discomfort concerning the wives of their claimed sons when they no longer have need of them, and ever is the command of Allah accomplished. Sahih International English translation of Surah 33, Ayat 37. So the Islamic religious scholars who gave the tafsir exegesis on a part of Surah 33, Ayat 37 ayah tells us that Prophet Muhammad failed to come up to the station of a prophet and the messenger of Allah. The part of Surah 33, Ayah 37 is, you said, keep your wife and fear Allah, while you concealed within yourself that which Allah is to disclose, and you feared the people, while Allah has more right that you fear Him. So this part A, you, meaning Prophet Muhammad, said to Zaid, keep your wife and fear Allah. What we learn from the tafsir in Quran.com by Ma'arif al-Quran is the Prophet did not come up to the station of a messenger of Allah. So this is in Quran.com, Ma'arif al-Quran, Tafsir by Ma'arif al-Quran. Okay, then what the Holy... so reading out this Tafsir now from Quran.com, Ma'arif al-Quran, what the Holy Prophet said was correct and sound in its place. But after having learnt about the event, as it would transpire through divine revelation, and after the intention of nikah with Sayyidah Zainab having emerged in his heart, this advice of not divorcing given to Sayyidina Zaid had remained at the level of a sort of formal expression of good wishes. One could say, I could say a superficial expression, not formal. Something not appropriate to the station of a messenger of Allah. Particularly so because along with it, included therein was the apprehension of taunts from the people. Therefore, in the cited verse, the admonition was revealed in the words which mean the admonition was revealed. Admonition against Prophet Muhammad, Allah's admonition against Prophet Muhammad in the words which mean you were concealing in your heart what Allah was going to reveal. When the information about his marriage, with Sayyidah Zainab was conveyed to him from Allah, and the intention of marriage had already, crossed his heart, then the act of hiding this intention and indulging in such formal remarks was not appropriate to his messenger prophet's station. right? So I just added prophet, messenger, but it says here, it says here, to his station it was not appropriate. Continuing the tafsir, as for the apprehension of taunts from the people, it was said you were fearing people, while Allah is more entitled to be feared by you. In other words, when you knew that this thing is going to take place as a matter destined by Allah Ta'ala, without there being an apprehension or danger of His displeasure in that case, then simply because of the apprehension of taunts from the people, such remarks were not appropriate. The details of this event appearing above have all been taken from Tafsir ibn Kathir, Qurtubi and Ruh al-Mani. So, Ma'arif al-Quran in the Tafsir and Quran.com have been taken from these exegetes, right? And what we learn from these Islamic exegetes in myislam.org is this. By Maududi is that not only did Prophet Muhammad fall below the station of a messenger of Allah, but also the high position of a prophet of Allah. That Allah wanted to give him that high position. Put in these words by Maududi, Allah found this below the high position that He wanted His prophet to enjoy. That is why when Zaid expressed his intention to divorce his wife, the prophet said to him, fear Allah. It's not fear, the Arabic word in this ayat, but it is be mindful. Ittaqu, be mindful of Allah. And do not divorce your wife, but keep your wife. So here Maududi puts it like this. What he meant by this was that Zaid should not divorce his wife, so that he was saved from facing the trial. Otherwise, in the case the divorce was pronounced, he would have to comply with the command, and thus provoke a severe storm of criticism and vilification against himself. Command of Allah, comply. So my note, I'm adding this, sorry, not my notes, but adding from myself. Command of Allah, you would have to comply with the command of Allah and thus provoke a severe storm of criticism and vilification against himself. But when the Prophet deliberately forbade Zaid to divorce his wife so that he himself might be saved from what he forbade Zaid, deliberately the Prophet forbidding Zaid to divorce his wife. This is what the exegetes are saying here, religious or scholarly Islamic Muslim exegetes. Sorry, like Maududi. Excuse me, I have this cough. So, might be saved from what, so deliberately forbade Zaid. The Prophet deliberately forbade Zaid to divorce his wife so that he himself might be saved from what he feared would cause him defamation. Allah found this below the high position that He wanted His Prophet to enjoy. Below the high position of a prophet, right? Whereas Allah intended to effect a great reform through this marriage of the Prophet. Thus, according to Islamic scholarly exegesis, Prophet Muhammad didn't qualify and thus failed to come up to the position of a prophet and messenger of Allah. Then part B of Surah 33, Ayat 37. While you concealed within yourself that which Allah is to disclose, and you feared the people, while Allah has more right that you fear Him. So, you is Prophet Muhammad here in this part of the ayat too, right? What we learn from Islamic scholarly exegesis on this is that Prophet Muhammad earned Allah's displeasure too. Recorded in Quran.com, Tafsir by Ma'arif al-Quran, in the words of the Islamic scholarly exegetes. The majority of commentators, Zuhri, Bakr ibn al-Ala al-Qushayri, and Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi, have adopted this very tafsir. That is, the mention of the thing he was keeping to himself was but this intention of marriage under divine revelation. Then the words of the Quran themselves lend support to this very tafsir mentioned above on the authority of Sayyidina or Imam Zain al-Abidin, of the fourth Imam of the 12 Shias, and also the Imam of the Ismaili Shias. So, in this verse, Allah Ta'ala has himself said very clearly that the thing hidden in the heart was what Allah Ta'ala is going to disclose. And the thing that Allah Ta'ala disclosed in this verse, this part of the verse, is nikah or marriage with Sayyida Zainab, as said in, we gave her into your marriage. Ruh al-Mani, reported in Ruh, also recorded in Ruh al-Mani. To protect oneself against taunts thrown by people is praiseworthy unless it affects some objective of the Sharia, which it did here. Right? So a question that, therefore they say now, the exegetes like Ma'arif al-Quran, a question arises here as to why the Holy Prophet chose to conceal this matter, which became the cause of divine displeasure, only to avoid the taunts of a hostile people. And in myislam.org, the tafsir on same ayat 37, on this part, Allama Alusi in his Ruh al-Mani has also given the same meaning of it. He says this is an expression of displeasure. Displeasure meaning by Allah. Allah's displeasure that Prophet Muhammad earned. So this is an expression of displeasure or abandoning the better course, which was that the Prophet should have kept quiet or should have told Zaid to do as he liked. The displeasure amounted to this: why did you tell Zaid to keep his wife, whereas I had informed you beforehand that Zainab would be included among your wives? The answer to why Prophet Muhammad earned the divine displeasure we don't need to learn. But what we learned through the tafsir is that Prophet Muhammad gained the divine displeasure through these tafsirs, Allama Alusi's and in Ruh al-Mani and Maududi in myislam.org. Right? So then, but what we learn from the tafsir is that Prophet Muhammad gained the displeasure, divine displeasure, or the displeasure of Allah. So for now, this is enough to bring us to the Islamic blasphemy law. What does AI Overview say about the Islamic blasphemy law? It says there is no consensus on the punishment for blasphemy against the Prophet Muhammad in Islam. The Quran does not prescribe a specific worldly punishment, while some interpretations of Hadith link blasphemy to the death penalty, often by classifying it as apostasy. These interpretations are debated and considered by some scholars to contradict the Quran, which suggests that punishment for blasphemy is a matter for God in the hereafter. Some interpretations argue the death penalty may only apply in cases that threaten public order or involve other crimes like treason. However, in Pakistan, blasphemy law is like this. In January, taken from Wikipedia, sorry. In January 2023, Pakistan's National Assembly passed a vote to tighten the country's blasphemy laws, a move that incited concern among minority groups. These communities feared the enhanced laws could lead to more human rights violations and further persecution of religious minorities. On January 17, the Assembly unanimously approved the Criminal Laws Amendment Bill. This legislation increased the penalty for disrespecting the Prophet Muhammad's companions, wives, and family members from 3 years of imprisonment to 10 years, in addition to a fine of 1 million Pakistani rupees, equivalent to roughly Great Britain pounds 3,500. Blasphemy is a capital offense in Pakistan. Wikipedia gives us this. What about our findings through academic research and evidence examining Quran ayats that reveal the Prophet Muhammad to be a false prophet and Quran to be from other than Allah? Then neither we nor our findings should come under blasphemy law in Islam. The overview: blasphemy in Pakistan is a serious offense punishable by death. Though no one has been executed by the state, accusations alone are often enough to lead to mob violence, with vigilantes killing dozens of people who are awaiting trial. The laws are widely criticized by human rights groups for being discriminatory and used to settle personal vendettas and persecute minorities, with false accusations leading to imprisonment but no penalties for the accusers. Legal and social context. Legal punishment. The Pakistan Penal Code includes offenses against religion with defamation of the Prophet Muhammad, Section 295-C, carrying a mandatory death sentence. However, courts have not carried out this penalty. Since the exegesis state for Surah 33, Ayah 37, that Prophet Muhammad didn't come up to the station of a messenger of Allah or the high position of a prophet and also earned the displeasure of Allah, why should individuals or who were Muslims researching the Quran found Prophet Muhammad to be a false prophet lead to them being punished for saying what they have found to be true against Prophet Muhammad and the Quran? Thus, having seen from the exegesis, Tafsir, that Prophet Muhammad should not have concealed in himself what Allah was to reveal, since he knew what Allah was to reveal, yet telling Zaid to keep his wife and be mindful of Allah, and also fearing the people rather than Allah gained him, rather than Allah. So, which gained him Allah's displeasure. Now let's also look at this part of the ayah in the light of Quran ayah, Surah 4. Okay, so it's Surah 4 ayah 108. What these Muslim scholarly exegetes didn't take, right? Prophet Muhammad concealed in himself for fear of the people, whereas Allah wanted him to fear Allah rather than the people. Surah 4 ayat 108, they conceal from the people, but they cannot conceal from Allah, and He is with them when they spend the night in such as He does not accept of speech. And ever is Allah what they do encompassing. Sahih International's translation of Surah 4 ayat 108 I just read out, and now reading out Maududi's translation on this Surah 4 ayat 108. They can hide from men, but they cannot hide from Allah, for He is with them, even when they hold nightly counsels that are unpleasing to Allah. Allah encompasses all their doings. Now you see, unpleasing to Allah. So the exegetes, religious scholars, Muslim religious scholars say that Prophet Muhammad gained the displeasure of Allah in Surah 33 at 37. Right? So, what the Muslim scholarly exegetes have worked out on Surah 33 at 37 is from this ayah, which is about deceptive or dishonest people. Allah tells Prophet Muhammad, do not argue for the dishonest ones also. In Surah 4, ayat 105, Allah states, O Messenger, we, in brackets, close brackets, we have revealed to you this book with the truth so that you may judge between people in accordance with what Allah has shown you. So do not dispute on behalf of the dishonest. Maududi's translation. Then Surah 4, ayat 107, and do not argue on behalf of those who deceive themselves. Indeed, Allah loves not one who is a habitually sinful deceiver. Sahih International Translation. And Surah 4, ayat 109, here you are, those who argue on their behalf in this worldly life. But who will argue with Allah for them on the day of resurrection? Or who will then be their representative? Sahih International Translation of Surah 4, ayat 109. Taking these ayats and going back to Surah 33, ayat 37, the part where Prophet Muhammad himself concealed in himself what he should not have. That's why Allah rebukes him. And this also causes him to earn Allah's displeasure, according to Muslim scholarly exegetes. So this proves Prophet Muhammad was a dishonest person, not only through the exegesis, tafsir, but also through the Quran ayats, Surah 4, ayats 105 to 108. Right? So now, so let me read again Surah 33, ayat 37. And remember, O Muhammad, when you said to the one on whom Allah bestowed favor and you bestowed favor, keep your wife and fear Allah, while you concealed within yourself that which Allah is to disclose, and you feared the people, while Allah has more right that you fear Him. And so noteworthy is that these Muslim scholarly exegetes didn't apply Surah 2, ayat 235 for this either, as a defense for Prophet Muhammad's concealment. Surah 2, ayat 235, Allah states, there is no blame upon you for that to which you allude concerning a proposal to women. Who are these women? They're females undergoing divorce and iddah. Right? So again, Surah 2, continuing with Surah 2, ayat 235, concerning a proposal, allude concerning a proposal to women or for what you conceal within yourselves. Allah knows that you will have them in mind, but do not promise them secretly, except for saying a proper saying, and do not determine to undertake a marriage contract until the decreed period reaches its end. And know that Allah knows what is within yourselves. So beware of Him and know that Allah is forgiving and forbearing. Sahih International. Now, iddah. What is iddah? As I said, that for the females, this ayat, and for the men who want to marry them, they can, there's no blame upon you for that which you indirectly allude concerning a proposal to these women. So, and you conceal within your, or for what you conceal within yourselves about these women. So these females undergoing divorce and iddah, waiting period. So what is iddah? AI Overview has given us a definition of iddah. is the Islamic waiting period a woman must observe after the dissolution of a marriage via divorce or death of the husband before she can remarry. Let's continue. Now on Prophet Muhammad forbidding Zaid to divorce his wife Zainab. Obedience, because it's a command, right? Keep your wife and be mindful of Allah in Surah 33 ayat 37. Obedience to, now on Prophet Muhammad forbidding Zaid to divorce his wife Zainab. Obedience to Prophet Muhammad is equivalent to obedience to Allah, Surah 4 ayat 80 of the Quran, and other ayats also tell the believers to obey and his messenger, like the one previous to Surah 33 ayat 37, that's ayat 36. Zaid completed his want of her, meaning completed the divorce and not wanting his wife back during the waiting period. That is called Ida also, right? Waiting period. So Zaid didn't obey Prophet Muhammad's command, but Allah's, for the divorce to take place, and Allah's purpose or command, Amri, to be accomplished, the Arabic word. Amr, Allah's command. So part C of the ayat now, of Surah 33 ayat 37 is, so when Zaid had no longer any need for her, we married her to you, in order that there not be upon the believers any discomfort concerning the wives of their claimed sons, when they no longer have need of them. And ever is the command of Allah accomplished. Sahih International. So before this, in the pagan Arab custom, this was not allowed. But now Allah allowed believers to marry their claimed sons, not adopted sons. Even the pagan Arab custom of adoption was relinquished, right? So now the new law here was that you can marry your adopted son's ex-wives. But noteworthy, Zaid doesn't obey Prophet Muhammad's command to keep his wife and be mindful of Allah. Right? So this. And Prophet Muhammad became a hindrance to Allah's command by commanding him, it's a command, to keep his wife and be mindful of Allah. How can Allah then make the obedience to his messenger equivalent to himself, when his own chosen messenger and prophet became a hindrance to Allah's command? Amri, right? Here, the Arabic word in this ayat, Surah 33, ayat 37. And ever is the command, Amri, i.e. decree of Allah, accomplished. So Zaid wasn't a hindrance, the messenger was. And moreover, we're told in other ayats of the Quran, in Surah 4, ayat 80, also, to obey Prophet Muhammad along with Allah, and obeying Prophet Muhammad, the messenger of Allah, is equivalent to obeying Allah in Surah 4, ayat 80, clearly stated by Allah. So, and obedience to not only Allah, but obedience to the messenger of Allah. How does Allah state that? Put it in Surah 33 ayat 66. The day their faces will be turned about in the fire, they will say, how we wish we had obeyed Allah and obeyed the messenger. Sahih International translation of Surah 33 ayat 66. It's so important to obey not only Allah but the messenger. That's how Allah puts it, not the messenger of Allah, but it means the messenger of Allah in this ayat. Surah 33 ayat 66. Ayats of obedience to Allah and the messenger contradicting against Quran, Surah 33 ayat 37 in the Quran, right? So this also has come up, contradictions. Surah 4 ayat 82, then do they not reflect upon the Quran? If it had been from any other than Allah, they would have found within it much contradiction. Sahih International translation of this ayah. So we find another contradiction in the Quran. Right? So taking Surah 33, Ayat 37. Thus, this contradiction also in the Quran tells us that it is from other than Allah, and since Prophet Muhammad failed also to accomplish Allah's command, sorry, excuse me if this cough, Surah 80, Ayah 23 would apply to Prophet Muhammad, since the Sunnis say and other non-Shia Muslims that the one who frowned was Prophet Muhammad. The Shia say he was not Prophet Muhammad, he was there from the pagan someone, Sahaba, right? But it was Prophet Muhammad who frowned. Well, from the pagan chief of the pagan who had gone to listen to Prophet Muhammad or talk to him. Sorry if I make slight mistakes like this and can't explain, right? Properly, I apologize, but I don't think it's going to make a great deal of difference. So Surah 80 at 23, which I said applies to Prophet Muhammad, now he went against Allah's command, thwarting it. In Surah 33 at 37 we see, by deliberately, what the religious scholars even have said, deliberately forbidding Zaid to divorce his wife, meaning keep your wife and be mindful of Allah. So Surah 80 at 23, by no means that he fulfilled what Allah had commanded him. Amri, it's from the word Amri, which is used in Surah 33 at 37. The same word in different form is used in Surah 80 at 23. So Allah now calls him, by no means had he fulfilled what Allah commanded him. Yusuf Ali's translation of Surah 80 at 23. This is Surah Abasa. And Sahih International's translation, no, man has not yet accomplished what he commanded him. No, Allah does not put man in this ayat. And Sahih International has not put man in brackets. So, but it's like this, it's how Yusuf Ali puts it. By no means had he fulfilled what Allah had commanded him. So he thwarted the command of Allah, although Zaid didn't. Right? So he should be disqualified as a prophet and a messenger of Allah. I wonder why. The religious scholars, exegetes, also went on believing in the Islam. I wonder why, right? So, and then Surah 80 at 17 also, destroyed is man, how disbelieving is he. So this should be applied to the Prophet now. Totally like disqualifying, going against the command of Allah, thwarting the command of Allah. In Surah 33 at 37, we see the exegesis also helping us on that. So accursed is the various translations in English of this ayat I've taken Sahih International. Sorry, Maududi puts accursed, but for qutl I would say, it's like gone. Maybe I can't use that word. Woe to man, Yusuf Ali puts it, what had made him reject Allah. So this whole thing, moreover taking the Quran ayats, like I said in the beginning, it shows that neither is Allah's revelation, this Quran, true, nor is this Prophet Muhammad the true prophet of Allah. Right, so this is what I have proven. Thank you so much. Yes, so let me complete this. This is what I have proven through the Muslim scholarly exegesis, and also through the other Quran ayats on Surah 33 ayat 37, which the religious Muslim scholarly exegesis did not use. Proven now against Prophet Muhammad and Allah's revelations, right? So there should be no blasphemy law against us who have looked at this, examined it, and found him to be a proven with evidence that Prophet Muhammad is a false prophet, and Allah's revelations these are not, the Quran is not a revelation from Allah. So thank you so much, and please forgive me any errors and mispronunciations of any word and omissions I made. Try to improve myself the next time, and any serious mistakes I don't think I've made at all. So I've abided by the ayats and the exegesis, Islamic, Muslim, scholarly. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Please leave Islam. Don't waste your time then on this religion, false religion.